You're looking live at New York at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, New York. Now, Michael Jackson, who died today at the age of 50, played the Apollo Theater in 1969, and you can see the crowds that have gathered there. Terrible news shocking the world today. Michael Jackson, who is literally known around the world, one of the most famous people, died of cardiac arrest earlier today. He was at his home in the Bel Air section of Los Angeles. When there was a phone call, 911, paramedics arrived at his home, took him the 2.5-minute drive approximately to UCLA Hospital. They tried to revive him. They were unsuccessful. He has died in California at the age of 50. And we are now continuing with our breaking news coverage on the death of Michael Jackson. Just about everyone is aware of Jackson's long history of legal trouble, starting in 1993, when Jackson faces a child abuse investigation that does not result in criminal charges. Jackson reportedly pays a multi-million-dollar civil settlement, but always maintains his innocence. 10 years later, in February 2003, Jackson says in an ABC documentary that he has shared a bed with children, but never in a sexual way. 10 months later, in December of 2003, Jackson is charged in a criminal complaint with child molestation and giving alcohol to a minor. January 2004, Jackson pleads not guilty to all the charges against him. Then in April 2004, a grand jury returns an indictment that replaces the original complaint. It alleges 4 counts of molestation and 4 counts of supplying alcohol to a minor. March 1, 2005, the prosecution begins its case. Jackson's accuser testifies to details of alleged sexual abuse, and the accuser's brother says he saw Jackson molest the accuser twice. May 5, 2005, the defense begins its case, alleging that the boy and his family falsely accused Jackson to get a money judgment, a money settlement. June 3rd, the case goes to the jury, and June 13th, 2005, Jackson is found not guilty of all charges. Fox's Laura Engel covered the trial. She joins us live. Laura, you were there watching Michael Jackson going in and out of that court for days on end. Your thoughts tonight as we watch these crowds in Manhattan at Apollo Theater on one side of the screen and Michael Jackson on the lower screen. Your thoughts, Laura?
Hi, Greta. You know, I can still hardly believe it as I'm looking at these images. And when I first initially heard the word that Michael Jackson had been rushed to the hospital, it of course brought back a lot of memories for those of us who covered that trial in Santa Maria. He often was rushed to the hospital. We camped out in the hospital parking lots during the days and nights waiting to see when he would show up, when he would be released. There was one time I was outside of Neverland Ranch watching an ambulette leave, a small ambulance leaving, and he was always in bad health during that trial. So to see the body removed, to see that small piece of white covering the gurney, knowing how slight and gaunt he was at times during the trial, and how he shuffled in and out of that courtroom, not looking very well many days of that trial, you still just can't believe it tonight.
You know, he always seemed like he was in bad health. And what struck me today by the recitation of events, and this is a developing story, we don't have all the facts locked down at this point, we only have pieces of information, but apparently there was a doctor on the scene before the paramedics arrived. What was that doctor doing? Why was that doctor summoned? How sick was Michael Jackson? What was the delay? He's only 2.5 minutes away from the hospital. It just seems so weird. And this is a guy, he always looks sick whenever we saw him.
That's right. You know, and we don't know, as you said, the details of that. As I was going back through my notes of that trial that we both covered in 2005, you know, there were times when he was asked to bring a doctor's note. There was one day he did bring a doctor into the courtroom to testify about, or at least to vouch for him about what kind of health he was in. And there were many times where, as you mentioned, he looked gaunt. We didn't know what was wrong with him. He reportedly had collapsed several times. Of course, we've heard a lot of reports of drug abuse. We'll have to wait and see what happens with the autopsy. But that's what a lot of people are talking about tonight, what he may have been on, what may have been going on behind those closed doors.
Were you there the day he danced on the car?
No, I wasn't. I actually was not there that day. I was there for the pajama day when he showed up in his pajamas, shuffling in, and so many times that he came into the courtroom, he came in with the sunglasses and with, he was very festive in the way that he dressed, as always. I mean, he's a pop star, but he definitely came dressed into that courtroom like he was going out on a stage. Sunglasses, umbrellas, gloves, marching band pants, you know, sequined armbands. We saw a wide range of that in 2005.
You know, as we look at these pictures, live pictures at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, which of course is, 3,000 miles away from the location where Michael Jackson died, and you see all the people crowded there. I mean, in some ways it seems so predictable. I mean, think of all the crowds that showed up just at the courthouse when you covered the trial.
You know, when I first heard this tonight, the first thing that went through my mind was, oh my gosh, think of all the people that showed up at that courthouse every single day and what it is going to be like in the days to come. Greta, when we were outside of that courthouse, I went back through my notes. 33 people from 33 different countries had come to support Michael Jackson. They not only stood outside of that courthouse to catch a glimpse of Jackson going in and out of that courtroom, but also just to scream for him, just to let him know that they were there. They held signs, they cried, they wailed, they went to his home. And when the trial was over, they didn't leave. I mean, the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office were constantly called out to the Neverland Ranch because they were blocking the road, and he was long gone. So, the next few days are going to be very interesting, not only in Los Angeles, but here in New York, as you can see those crowds gathering.
Well, the fact that people from 33 countries shows why we have the magnitude of the coverage that we have. He really did go around the world. He really was that well known, touching people, from all around the world. Imagine 33 people from 33 countries coming to a small town in California just to watch a trial.
Oh, I know.
But anyway, Laura, thank you. All
right, Greta, thanks.
Joe Tacopina joins us live. He was a lawyer for Michael Jackson. Joe, it's stunning tonight. I keep saying the same thing to every single person I talk to, but we're all sort of surprised. I mean, I think most of us thought that Michael Jackson was going to have a big comeback. This isn't exactly what we expected.
No, Greta, you're right. I mean, just a few days ago, he was walking with his children in New York City, and quite frankly, he looked as healthy as I've seen him look in a while. Michael has obviously had a different look, and is not the pillar of health, but certainly this was unexpected. I thought at first it was one of those crazy rumors that you hear that catch like wildfire, but unfortunately it wasn't.
Joe, oftentimes people who have a lot of money have a whole team of lawyers, and some of the lawyers never get to meet the client because they're doing different parts of the case. Did you actually meet Michael Jackson?
Oh yeah, I spent some significant time out in California with him.
So what's he like? What was he
during
like?
the trial?
Tell us what he was like. We saw him from the outside.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, my interaction with him, Greta, I don't think it's like Dick Gregory's or anything like that. My interaction with him was during this, the worst period of his life, during this trial, and he was withdrawn and at times seemed, totally out of it during the trial, but, he was going through something that none of us, I think the fact that he was being accused and put through that trial devastated him and broke his spirit, and I believe that was the beginning of the end.
Some clients are rather passive, some sort of take control of the case. Was he a client who was passive and just let the lawyers do the jobs, or was he intimately involved with how each day went?
No, he was passive. His family was intimately involved, but he was passive. I mean, look, Tom Mesereau, did a masterful job in that case, and he really orchestrated it, and Michael put his faith in the hands of the lawyers and trust in the hands of the lawyers. So he was passive. No, he didn't really have that much interaction. Again, as I said, he was very withdrawn, and I think just amazed by the allegations, and obviously the jury saw through them.
Joe, thank you. And just to remind the viewers what they're looking at on the left-hand side of the screen, that is the Apollo Theater where Michael Jackson played in 1969, and that's in New York City in Harlem, and you can see the crowds there gathering on the news that Michael Jackson, age 50, has died, and our breaking news coverage continues. Michael Jackson may have been the most famous man in the world, and now he's gone.